Who will be the MCU's new Venom? While Spider-Man may have held a boat together in Spider-Man Homecoming, the wall crawler had apparently zero qualms about sinking the Titanic on Monday. And no, not talking about a very dark episode of What If, rather I'm talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, which surpassed the James Cameron classic at the box office earlier this week. The multiverse-spanning epic brought together characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Raimiverse, and the Amazing Spider-Verse to create a loving homage to our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in the best way possible. And while this brings the initial trilogy of Tom Holland starring Spider-Man films to a close, No Way Home left us with some major questions about the future of the MCU, the multiverse, and one very important goo boy, Venom. That's right, folks, Venom is coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but maybe not how any of us expected.
What the hell is that?
Today we're going to examine the ramifications of what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home as well as in Venom Let There Be Carnage so we can figure out who will become the Venom symbiote's new host in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now to talk about this in detail we have to spoil both Spider-Man No Way Home and Venom Let There Be Carnage more than we've already alluded to. So if you're worried about that kind of thing, then leave now before you see something that you probably shouldn't.
On second thought, please.
Alright, let's get into it, shall we? For one brief shining moment in time, Tom Hardy's Venom was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It all started back in the post-credit scene of Venom Let There Be Carnage, where Eddie and Venom were enjoying a nice telenovela in their dingy motel room while on the lam from the police. Now, just as Venom began telling Eddie about how its 80 billion light years of hive knowledge across universes would explode his tiny little brain, our heroes find themselves ensconced in a bright light, and when they regain their vision, they're in a wildly different, much nicer hotel room, and the TV's no longer showing a telenovela. Rather, it's a news report from J. Jonah Jameson about Spider-Man, and Venom immediately develops an unhealthy fixation with old Webhead. As we come to learn, this was the result of Doctor Strange's spell gone awry that causes the multiversal mayhem which unfolds over the course of No Way Home, with villains from other universes coming into the MCU proper. Now, of course, despite theories about Venom being the mystery member of the Sinister Six in Spider-Man No Way Home, Tom Hardy's appearance in the movie was limited to a mid-credit scene in which he interrogates Danny Rojas as a bartender about all these super people that exist in this universe. But before he can get the closure that he needs, Doctor Strange works his magic yet again, and Eddie and Venom find themselves whisked back to their universe full of lobsters just waiting to be eaten in the middle of a crowded restaurant. However, as Venom's wont to do, he made a bit of a mess, and a blob of symbiote goo remained behind on the bar counter. Now, the reason for how and why the symbiote stayed behind is as simple as Kevin Feige wants Venom in the MCU, or it's as complex as Null, the eldritch god of darkness, imbuing the symbiotes with a hive mind that's capable of spanning the entire multiverse. Regardless, Venom is in the MCU, but who will be its new host? So the simplest answer is that it's going to be Eddie Brock. Maybe another version of Eddie Brock, also played by Tom Hardy, maybe a new version of Eddie Brock specifically for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Honestly, it's too early to tell, but considering that J. Jonah Jameson exists in roughly the same form across multiple cinematic universes, and both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Peter Parkers had similar people in their lives to Tom Holland's Peter, it's not outside the realm of possibility to see Tom Hardy pulling double duty. I mean, he's played twins before.
Fuck a pain the f***ing pain in the ass and f*** his briefcase. I don't give a f*** what's in there.
Next up, we come to the other likeliest suspect, Peter Parker himself.
Until we've uncovered the truth.
Spider-Man first donned his iconic black and white suit in Amazing Spider-Man number 252, and later on, we learned he found that costume on Battleworld in 1984's Secret Wars number 8, believing it to be something he made with a fabric replicator. Although it was largely intended to sell more action figures, this new costume turned out to be the alien life form we'd come to know and love as Venom, and it was trying to permanently bond with Peter Parker. No Way Home effectively hits the reset button on Peter Parker's life. It leaves him without the resources of the late Tony Stark and only a homemade costume in which to fight crime. So he might be eager to upgrade his duds at his earliest convenience. And now that Peter's on his own and needs to pay the bills, he'll likely find himself significantly more exhausted than he used to be as just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And that's exactly where something like the Venom symbiote could come in. Much like in the comics, this advanced suit could help boost his strength and even pilot his body like a meaty mech suit while he sleeps. Of course, we've already seen this particular arc play out on the big screen in Spider-Man 3, but if you're telling me you don't want to see Tom Holland threatening to put some dirt in your eye, you're lying to yourself.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Next up, we come to another character that has both a bone to pick with Spider-Man and is played host to the Venom symbiote in the comics, Mac Gargan, better known as the Scorpion. In the comics, Mac was on his way to kidnap Aunt May on behalf of Norman Osborn when he was approached by the newly freed Venom symbiote, and the symbiote wanted to bond with Mac because of their shared hatred of Spider-Man. While we saw Scorpion teased in silhouette form in the clouds toward the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, the last time we saw Gargan in the MCU was way back in Spider-Man Homecoming. Gargan tried to buy stolen Chitauri technology from Adrian Toomes' crew on the Staten Island ferry, only to wind up getting busted by Spider-Man and the FBI. During the film's mid-credit scene, Gargan reunites with Toomes in jail, and they bond over their mutual hatred of Spider-Man. So with the Venom symbiote already having an unhealthy fixation on Spider-Man the moment it lands in the MCU, and Gargan's seething rage at Spider-Man getting him arrested, these two seem like a match made in heaven if your version of heaven involves a lot of murder. And considering that Mac Gargan's Venom becomes a member of the Thunderbolts and the Dark Avengers in the comics, he can also play into the unfolding plot of whatever Black Ops super team Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine seems to be slowly assembling. But moving on, and speaking of unhealthy fixations on Spider-Man, we come to Flash Thompson. While Tony Revolori's version of Peter Parker's high school bully is much more glib rich kid than towering football beef castle, the MCU's Flash is undeniably obsessed with Spider-Man.
What is it with you and Spider-Man?
What? He inspires me to be a better man.
So in the comics, Flash winds up enlisting in the army after high school and serving in Iraq until battlefield injuries cause him to lose both his legs. Back in the US and deeply depressed, Flash was one of the subjects of Project Rebirth 2.0, a government project designed to try and recreate super soldiers a la Captain America using captured alien symbiotes. After they captured the Venom symbiote from Mac Gargan, government scientists bonded it to Flash to turn him into Agent Venom. So this Venom symbiote not only healed Flash's legs, but it gave him all manner of superpowers a la Spider-Man in the process. Now, over the years, Flash as Venom has served as a member of the Secret Avengers, the Thunderbolts, and even the Guardians of the Galaxy as well. But as we've mentioned, the Flash of the comics is very different than the Flash of the MCU. The Flash of the MCU is obsessed with fame, power, and in particular, superpowers. This version of Flash, along with his fixation on Spider-Man, would make him the perfect vessel for the Venom symbiote to bond with. Besides, giving Peter Parker an antagonist his own age rather than someone much older than him would make for a unique dynamic that we haven't seen this version of Peter have to deal with yet. And if nothing else, it would make for some even more hilarious live streams.
Hey, if it wasn't for those stupid videos, Spider-Man would have never found you.
Spider-Man follows me?
And finally, we come to what I think is the least likely candidate of all, but a candidate nonetheless, and that's Carol Danvers. Look, do I think they're actually going to have the Venom symbiote bond with Captain Marvel in the MCU? No, I don't. But is there a comic book precedent for this happening? Absolutely. During the events of 2010 Siege Spider-Man #1, Carol Danvers briefly became the host of the Venom symbiote after she ripped Mac Gargan straight out of the symbiote itself, which is pretty awesome. Alas, it was a short-lived transformation, but it could definitely be a cool sequence as part of a larger Spider-Man and Venom story. Anyway, folks, there you have it. Those are our best guesses for who might find themselves the future host of the Venom symbiote in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With the future of Spider-Man in the MCU currently a giant question mark, it's going to be quite some time before we get any meaningful answers. However, with Morbius right around the corner this April, we might get some more clues about what to expect from the multiverse of it all. After all, as Jared Leto said during CCXP Worlds 2021, in the film version of Morbius that we're bringing to you now, he's also part of a much larger universe. If you've seen the last Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, you know the multiverse is officially opened, and there's all kinds of opportunities for villains to meet up, thrive, and maybe even nurture their more sinister intents. So folks, anything is possible when it comes to the MCU and the Sony Spider-Man universe. For now though, we'll just have to wait and see where the proverbial chips fall, but in the meantime, we've got plenty of deep dives, breakdowns, and theories about all things Marvel waiting for you over on Nerdist.com. But first, folks, tell us, what do you think about these theories? What do you want to see from a new Spider-Man trilogy? Who do you think will be the new Venom in the MCU? And is Venom considered a loser on his home planet because he lost to Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3?
On my planet, I am kind of a loser, like you.
Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.